Coincidence makers. so today you're gonna go in a reading, and I posted it here. Here's the PDF. It's the whole chapter. So I'm gonna go through what I have for you, and this is exactly what you're gonna see on your screen. So we're gonna start the seat switch with Mr. Fig for this month, since it's gonna be the same person with you until winter break. So he's going to pick two names from the popsicle sticks in the jar, and whatever names that he pulls and draws, if you're here, you're going to switch seats. And this gives you a chance to meet someone new if you are the person picked, and also if you are the table who someone else is going to sit with you. So if you've already known each other, then this just gives you a small opportunity to welcome a new person into your social group, and for them to experience a different social group than they usually sit with. So you could pause the video here and do that. And the next thing you're going to do is, so you're going to open up this document, and I will open it up after I go through the instructions. So I know there's 5 table groups. So each table group will have one of these 5 positions on free will. So these are philosophical positions on free will. You can either be a hard determinist, you could be an indeterminist, you could be a traditional compatibilist, a deep self-compatibilist, or a libertarianism. And you'll know what each of these things means eventually, but whichever position your group wants to take on, let's just do it first come, first serve. That would probably be easiest. Whichever one you're going to take on, you're going to create a PowerPoint. So name your position. Which one do you have out of these 5? Define it. Please explain which one it is in. So we have 2 main branches when it comes to free will. There's incompatibilism and compatibilism. So include that as well when you describe what hard determinism is, or describe what indeterminism is. So define those 2 things. If the see any key points necessary to teach and understand. So don't just put random information on your PowerPoint. Put information that relates to it, that helps the rest of your class understand what this is about. And you are going to present these. So instead of just posting the PowerPoint and letting everyone take notes on it and inevitably get caught in having links on here that don't work, and then you guys just sit there and no one says anything, you're going to present them so that we can make sure that everyone gets the information. And so when you put the key points on, just make sure it's enough and relevant enough. So not only enough, put enough information there, but also relevant enough, tying it back to your position. Then if you have any vocabulary in your section, include that, but don't just paste the vocab and define it. It's really important, just like, the teachers that you value, they don't just put vocabulary up. They put it up and then they explain how it relates back to the position. So how it adds to the context of what the position is, or what the concept is. And what's really good at relating it back is if you can use an example. So examples are usually are very helpful, and you are probably relating to this as I'm explaining this. Like when you're learning math or anything, an example always kind of grounds it to help us understand it better, understand how it relates back to the concept, right? E, I want you to state the position in as an argument in normal form. So that is, if you remember normal form from logic, that would be like premise 1, all humans are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a human. And then, therefore, right, the three dots, the line, and then the three dots. I'm looking at myself. So the line and the three dots, Socrates is mortal, right? So normal form. If you have to go back and look at your notes, you can do that. So there's one position that already has it in normal form. But if you remember, you actually are able to create an argument in normal form all on your own. So when I open up the pages and go over this, then I'll explain to you what I mean by this. But so if you get one of the positions that doesn't have an argument in normal form laid out with it, you are absolutely capable of writing one on your own. And there's no perfect right way to do it, but there are some wrong ways. So just make sure you know how to do that and review your notes if you need to. Also on your PowerPoint, I would like you to include food for thought or a discussion question. You can literally take the food from thought straight from the reading and put it on your PowerPoint. That is okay. It's food for thought that a professor of philosophy chose to include in this textbook that they wrote. So they are good, right? But if you read it and you're like, actually, I am inspired and think of this own discussion question or these own scenarios, and now I want to kind of creatively tweak it, please do. That's even better. That's even cooler. And then the last one is problems and or contradictions. So some of your sections will have a section of problems and contradictions, and some of your other ones will kind of have it written in. You'll have to read between the lines, or it'll simply state in the section, one issue with this. Or as you're reading, you can think of one issue. Essentially, like, all of them are different. So, and none of them are perfect. So, each case, a problem and a contradiction would come from looking at how it relates to the other ones. So you might have to read through some of the other positions to create your own problems and contradictions, because they're all kind of somewhat in conflict with one another. They're not, they are mutually exclusive, if you know what that means. So then when you create your PowerPoint, and it can come from Canva, just make sure that when you copy the link, you're not just going up here and doing copy paste. You are going into the three dots or whatever. You're pressing the share button, and then you are setting the settings to shareable to all, shareable to anyone with a link, whatever it needs to say. And then you're going to reply on this post here. So next class, that's what you're going to do. You're going to have a maximum of 15 minutes in order to get through everyone. It would be 5. Yeah, I think a max of 15, but try to keep it between 10 and 15, no longer than 15. Some of you are going to be done in less than 10. Obviously, that's fine too. But it shouldn't be you shouldn't be able to get through these things in less than 5 minutes. If you do, you don't have enough information on here. So some of you are not going to have a lot of key points, or maybe you won't have any vocab, but you should spend more time on the food for thought or the discussion questions. The food for thought, it's very basic, but if you think of something and you're like, what does this mean for people who prophesize, and psychic people who have prophetic dreams and that comes true? What does that mean in relation to all these things? What does it mean when you go to a psychic or a fortune teller and your fortune is read? What do they have to say about it? What about I don't know, anything that you can think of? Karma, right? I don't know, twins who are raised, or siblings who are raised the same way, and one ends up in one way and one ends up in another way based on their decisions. if they both had a hard life or something, like some kind of situation should happen. And by the way, when you I have this here, so when you're presenting on Wednesday, before you move on to the next person, let's get at least 2 answers from the class. So when you're presenting and you get to your food for thought or your discussion questions, you cannot move on until at least 2 people add a comment or say something. And I know that everyone's going to look at the people who normally raise their hands and answer the questions, like Ethan and Jaden. But hey, you guys can share too, and don't let it be the same people answering these questions or giving their thoughts, even though they're so insightful. Save it for something that you really feel passionately about, or that you're like, ooh, I really want to add my thought. You guys just save it for one, and then just stare at everyone else until they respond. All right, so let me go to the so let me go to the reading. Oh, hold on. Okay. Free will. Is it posted? Hold on. Did I post? Oh, it's not posted. Now, free will. Okay, so we actually already went over this beginning part. This is what we did the last class before you guys left on fall break. And if you want to look here, this gives you a breakdown of the 5 different, where it comes from, the 5 different positions. So we've got free will. Then we have these 3 part of incompatibilism and then 2 part of compatibilism. So I'd like you to include compatibilism and incompatibilism when you guys are presenting. But each group is going to be assigned these 5. And by the way, please, my sweet little student leaders, who are they for? I've chosen you for, and some volunteered. So period 1, I'm assigning, Pan3 offered. Thank you, Pan3. And then I'm also adding Ezekiel to the list. So we have a Pan3 and Ezekiel for period 1. And period 3, I got you Jaden and Miles. You guys are my helpers. So if Mr. Fig has any questions, I'm relying on you to help him. If anyone, when people are starting to get started on their PowerPoints, I'm going to ask you to walk around every now and then and see if anyone needs help. And I'm also asking you now to help encourage the people in the class to move around to make sure the table groups are more even, or equal, I mean. So I know that one table has like 7 and then another table has 3. So can we kind of take a moment now to volunteer some people? And hey, actually, or you can vote it this way. How about Mr. Fig can pull some popsicle sticks out and pull some names to see who's going to join other groups and just make it even until it eventually gets there. But it would be a lot easier if you volunteer yourself. So, you guys should have already done this food for thought, although that was the day where there was a sub and my lessons weren't sent over, and I don't know if you guys actually wrote this in your notebook, but I did include this on the PowerPoint. It starts here. So today starts here. So this would be for hard determinism. And you see where it says 4.2. So when you go back to here, hard determinism, we have 4.2. Indeterminism, 4.3. Traditional and deep self-compatibilism are both 4.4. But the thing with these two, is that you will have to, both of these sections will have to read the introduction first, the introduction of compatibilism, because these are the only two that are compatibilism. So you're both going to write about compatibilism, and then you'll get into traditional and deep self. And then libertarianism is 4.5. So going back to the reading, we're starting with 4.2, which is determinism. And we've got one food for thought. Determinism actually is, I think, one of the longest ones. We have some vocab. We have a normal form argument. Wink, wink. And we actually have a normal form argument against hard determinism. And then we have a food for thought here and another food for thought. This one is actually really nice, by the way. You can include both if you want. If you're like, I think we need to add more, go ahead and include both. Discussions are the crux of philosophy. It's all Socratic seminars. So, you know, I'm lucky that we have this textbook where we can actually put some terms to these ideas that we talk about. But philosophy is all about discussing. And so then we have indeterminism, which is 4.3. I'm not sure if you have, well, yes, you have a vocab, which is it. But I also want to say that if you're reading here on these and you don't see a word in bold but you think that it should be included in the vocabulary list, add it. Okay? I do that all the time. I'm like, well, you know, these are some vocab terms, but then also we do need to know these terms too. And some people aren't going to have prior knowledge, especially like high schoolers. There's some words that, this is a college textbook, by the way, that's why they speak about drinking so freely. But there are some terms that are on here that people don't have prior knowledge of. So if you want to add it and give it context, please do. You can add a quote if you want. You've got this quote. You have a food for thought. Okay. You're going to have to come up with your own form of form of argument in normal form, though. What else? Oh, and then some issues. You might even be able to read about determinism and then get your issues there because they're not compatible. By the way, so like the incompatibilism means that they're not compatible. So you could read about one of the other ones for the problems with it. All right, so compatibilism is 4.4. This is traditional compatibilism and deep self-compatibilism. So both groups are going to read the first part, and then you have traditional compatibilism and a food for thought, and then deep self-compatibilism and food for thought. You have actually 3 foods food for thought here. So you can either choose, or you can include all 3 since your section is a little shorter. Oh, 4. That's a lot. Actually, this food for thought goes with traditional and deep self. I believe that whoever gets these 2 sections will have a lot more, be able to think of a lot more creative things in our modern world that relate to these things. Especially if you're like on the more like neo-spiritual rooms of TikTok, right? Whatever you want to call it. But and then you have a problem for compatibilism, which includes traditional and deep self. So you do have problems that are laid out right here for you. So traditional and deep self, you have your own specific sections, but then you both have the same introduction and you both have problems. So you'll have to work together to figure out who wants to say what for each one. especially when it comes to the problems. You could combine your forces to help each other and help the class understand the difference between them all. And then we have incompatibilism. All right, so then the last one is 4.5, libertarianism. And you do have terms here. So, and we have a diagram. You're welcome to even, like, if you want to screenshot the diagram and upload it, or draw your own. You can do that. And then you have your problems here and some foods for thought. Foods, yes. So, I'm including the whole thing because the whole section of this textbook, because if for any reason you get to the you're waiting to understand each one, and you hear your presentations and you just want to read more, or you want to, there's something that you're like, make it make sense, you have the reading that it was drawn from, so you can always go back and consult the reading and just read for yourself if you're still confused about anything. But I would encourage everyone to read the final remarks as well. And at the end of this week, you're going to have a check for understanding posted on Teams and other multiple choice things. So just make sure that you make sure you do a good job with these PowerPoints, not only for yourself, but for your peers. They're relying on you to teach them well. And then also, I want you to also consider when you're learning about these things, remember our Robert Harris article, and imagine what someone who takes on these positions would think about his sense of responsibility in the murders, and also how that would, based on which position someone takes, how you think that might influence how they would want Robert to be held accountable for those actions. And then what does that mean for people in the world and our society when we hold people accountable for their actions, and how we treat criminals, and how we try to, because remember, there's not just punishment in jail. There's a lot of different ways that judges can hold people accountable for their actions. They can send them to rehab. They can send them to community service. They can give them a fine. They can, you can even creatively think of, like, what are the best ways to change someone's direction of their life. And really, that would be changing their this relates to all of these questions of free will. Like, is it possible, and how do we do so, and can we change fate, or is this person always destined to be a certain way? What makes someone's destiny change, if we want to call it destiny, or life path change? And I think that depending on what people believe too, like, some people will give up and say that I'm doomed to be the person I am forever. And, like, think about serial killers. Like, do you think that it's possible for them to change? Like, do you think that some of them really just believe, like, that's who they are at their core, and that they won't change? And then in what ways do other people make decisions that do change their lives? And then, or do they fall back? I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about. It's hard to talk to myself through all these concepts. I wish I was there in front of you so we can have a nice Socratic seminar. But alas, soon enough, my little coincidence makers. Don't forget also that the chapters, we have a book club coming up on Friday, so I'll post those chapters, but you can also, they're also posted on the PowerPoint. I think that is enough talking for me, and I wish you well. Good luck, and goodbye.